and I
Yeah.
got very
And how did
fortunate.
you discover that guy? Just curious. It was a ripple, I think.
Um,
Joel
it
Harvey.
was, I think it was a classified ad or something like that. You introduced me to
Yeah.
Joel. Wow, we definitely got to hang out more if this is what it's like. Thank you for the compliments.
I am super excited to introduce you to Brian Massey. Brian and I have known each other for a long time. I've been trying to get him on this show for quite a while. He is an amazing entrepreneur, and he's actually, in part, responsible for actually why I have a podcast. He introduced me to the medium way back in, 2005, 2006. He came to an event that we were holding for the 8 Minute Ripple and actually recorded it. It was hella fun. I got to find a link out there on the web for you to hear it. But Brian has one of those great DJ voices. He's just such an amazing individual. Podcasting went up, then it kind of leveled off, and now it's back hot again. But Brian left podcasting behind and now has a company called Conversion Sciences, which we'll learn about. Calls himself a conversion scientist. He is one of these guys that is just infinitely interesting to talk to. He's always looking out 2 or 3 steps ahead of what the emerging trends are. He's always fascinating to talk to because he's always learning so many new things that he brings to a conversation or to a client opportunity. He's just an amazing guy. I really, really like him. I feel sad that we don't get to hang out as often as we used to. For those of you that are in Austin, remember those days where we all used to, pony up to the bar and talk entrepreneurship. Well, Brian's too busy now. Conversion Sciences is just blowing up. Him and his co-founder, Joel Harvey, also a great friend of mine, have just done an amazing job to grow this firm and do things that are really revolutionary in helping customers convert that web traffic into paid customers. And so we're going to learn a little bit about what he does and what makes him tick. But most importantly, I wanted to have him on the show because he's just such an amazing entrepreneur. Just a neat guy. And I can't wait for you to meet him. So let's dive into this episode of the Ripple Effect podcast, this time with Brian Massey. I should actually call him podcasting godfather, but I don't know if he'd like that. But let's dive in. I am super excited to have Brian Massey join us today. Brian, welcome to the Ripple Effect podcast. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm wondering why it's been so long since before for me to get an invitation.
Well, I mean, come on. I've been inviting you. You're just busy all the time. You're traveling. You're like a world traveler. An in-demand keynote speaker. You're just an amazing entrepreneur. Just carving new paths and doing great things. And you're never around, man. Let's be
Mhm.
honest.
Well, we'll go with that story because it made me sound really good.
It does. And you always have the best hair. I love that.
It's still there,
Yeah,
so
yeah. Uh, Mine is there. You just can't really tell. So,
got that high and tight look. Works for
I do
you.
have that high and tight. Like I need to. I can't grow hair like you though. I mean, I just can't. I've always been envious of your hair. I bet you didn't know that.
I didn't know that. Wow, this is off to a real roaring start.
It is fantastic. Yeah, my listeners are gonna love this. But hey, listen, the reason I wanted you on the podcast, number one, I have tremendous respect for you as an entrepreneur and what you've done with Conversion Sciences, and I want to get into what you guys do here in a bit. But one of the reasons I have a podcast is you introduced me to this medium, and I'm
Oh,
in
really?
the 9th season of this. I mean, I remember back in 2006, you came to an 8 Minute Ripple, you recorded it, you put it out for the consumption on the web, and I'd love to say the rest was history. I'm still waiting to be discovered, but the episode was awesome.
Was
And
that the
you were the
bootstrap
one that
the
said, "Hey, man,
bootstrap
this is the
podcast?
future, right?" And this is where everybody is going at that time, and proved to be true. Well,
Well, I'm a man. For terrible reasons, I'm always a man ahead of my time.
I said that in your intro as well. I think actually, and I wouldn't say terrible reasons. You're always looking out ahead of the trends, 2 or 3 steps above or ahead of the rest of us, which is always amazing. And I loved how you saw podcasting as a new medium to get your message out, build your brand, etc. But then you've gone into this area for your current company that I think really still is carving new trails for your clients and helping them build their businesses through ways that are a little bit unconventional in terms of what they hear from like their web developer or their marketing experts. And so I definitely want to dig into that. But let me just start off with, give us a little bit of background about Brian Massey. How did you become the awesome, totally killer guy that you are, that we all
Oh my
now
God,
know and love?
I should hang out with you more. This is just great.
Yeah, hey, I'll send you my calendar invite. I mean, we never have beers together anymore. What's up with that? We need to fix that.
Nothing personal, I promise. I mean, I am trained, college trained as a computer programmer from Texas A&M University, Gigamags.
Yeah.
Um, I was one of those programmers that had some social skills. And before I graduated, I was pretty sure that I wasn't going to be sitting coding for my days.
Yeah.
So when I left, I went into sales. I was selling semiconductors for Texas Instruments, the training institute, as they call it here in
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I did a tour out on the West Coast selling microchips to a variety of electronics companies. Rose to my highest level of incompetence there. And when I was released from my duties, I beelined back to Austin, which I'd fallen in love with during college. I went back into software, worked for a startup here in Austin, and was so good at that that they decided to move me into marketing.
Nice job.
Apparently
Yeah.
had enough opinions that they were like, well, this guy talks a lot. Maybe we can get him out of programming and solve this marketing problem we've got.
Plus, all your teammates that were coders were probably happy that they moved you, right? Because you were talking so much.
Maybe so. I mean, that was when I started, really wondering like what marketing was working, and
Yeah.
started instrumenting my email so I could find out what landing page was working and stuff like that. That was the beginning of that. Um, the director of engineering and I left that company and started our own company in the 90s doing Windows 95 software. We were working on Zoom, and we were working on Google Maps, the equivalents of those things on Windows 95 back in the 90s.
Wow.
And the dot-com bust took out some of our clients. We just didn't have the wherewithal to keep going. So I spent the early part of this century working for mostly B2B technology companies, smaller company startups, building out their websites, starting their lead generation funnels, and got a little bit deeper into how you measure all of this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not a very good employee, as it turns out. So I'm good for about, I don't know, 9 to 12 months while I'm building the thing. And then
Yeah.
when they say keep putting quarters in it, I basically pout until I get fired. Um, so there at the dawn of all of this, I was like, what am I going to do? And I saw the Eisenberg brothers, Jeffrey and Brian Eisenberg, present
Yep.
at this crazy, amazing business school outside Austin called the Wizard Academy. And they
Oh,
introduced me to
yeah.
conversion rate optimization and testing. And I was like, I mean, with my background, the computer programmer, sales, marketing, entrepreneur, there was nothing else I really could have done but put on a lab coat and start a consulting company. And it was an immediate 5-year success of trying to convince the market that this is the way you need to build websites.
Yeah.
And then in 2011, I partnered up with my other, which I think is, when I'm mentoring entrepreneurs, my first advice is, can you find your other, that
Yeah.
complementary person, that
Yeah.
partner that you have an affinity with, but who has very different skills from you. And I
Yeah.
got very
And how did
fortunate.
you discover that guy? Just curious. It was a ripple, I think.
Um,
Joel
it
Harvey.
was, I think it was a classified ad or something like that. You introduced me to
Yeah.
Joel. Yeah. And he actually hired me at a couple of companies he worked for,
Yeah.
and then joined up when he was,
Ready
tired
to
of,
rock on his own. Yeah.
yeah, working 90 hours a week for startups.
Yeah.
And it's been a really fun ride ever since.
That's awesome. There's a lot to unpack there, right? But one of the things that I think is really revolutionary in terms of what your career path has been is that you've always been a consummate tester, right? So you kind of look at it from the analytical aspects of being a software developer, and testing out different aspects of the code and the approach. And like you said, once you deliver the product and start having to put quarters in it, you kind of get bored and want to do something different. So where do you think that comes from? Is that just a natural curiosity? Did you inherit that from a parent, or you know something you discovered or learned about yourself along the way?
Wow, that's a really good question. So, since I love data, I've collected a lot of data on myself as well. Myers Briggs, I'm ENTP, which means that I'm really borderline extroverted, but I really rely on my thoughts and what I think and my perceptions of the world rather than what the rules are.
Yeah.
That's the difference between a P and a J. On a Colby index, which is an index of how you are in action, like when you're doing things. I'm a high quick start, which means I have very little tolerance for processes. I can do the processes up to a point, then I'm like, let's just try something.
Yeah.
So you can kind of begin to see why I'm difficult to work with. I have an authority problem. I have a very long term view of things on
Sure.
Strengths Finder. I'm adaptive. Like I want to get into something, see what's going on, and then make decisions. Futurist, strategic, connected. Anyways, all of the signs pointed to like, yeah, this guy is better be an entrepreneur because
Yeah.
he's difficult to manage. And yeah, that I think that's where I came from. My dad was an entrepreneur. He ran his own business. He had some of the same. You could just see the same personality in him that I have in me. So genetically or nurturally, I inherited that disease,
Yeah.
and it's been painful at times,
Yeah.
um, but it's also I'm very very grateful that I was able to stick it out, and hat tip to my ex-wife for carrying me through for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I look back to when you and I first met, and I think, it goes all the way back to connecting at Bootstrap Austin and talking about those over many, many beers, right? About, the entrepreneurial
Mhm.
journey, where we wanted to go, what we wanted to do. I think we both realized pretty early in our friendship that neither one of us was, employable, right? We would not make good employees. And once you have that taste of entrepreneurship, right, you can't go back. And it's always a challenge in order to go back and fall under somebody else's decision authority or their regime, especially when you see things way different than they do, and you can actually see the potential outcome of decisions that need to be made or
Mhm.
investments that need to be placed. Um, and so I think you moving into that kind of consultative role with the clients that you work with, I mean, that's perfect for you, because at the end of the day, most of them probably show up and are like, I have no idea what we're supposed to be doing with this website or how it's supposed to work, and we paid a lot of money for it, and we're just waiting for the slot machine to start paying off. You're like, oh,
Mhm.
oh, you poor soul. Let me show you what you need to do differently. And I love that about you. Obviously, I had some experience with my time at MX Toolbox, bringing you in specifically, and then Joel, obviously having some ties back to that organization. But I know you transformed that company in a big way, and I knew you could, because you saw things differently than even the ownership did at the time. And so I think you have this gift, and it's always been inspiring to me to be able to look out at the future. And I remember you using that term futurist before I even understood what that exactly meant. But you have this uncanny ability to kind of be out ahead of at the what do we say, the tip of the skis, right? Looking at what's coming and where it's going and how to guide and direct. And so how much
Mhm.
of that, vision and skill sets has been responsible for your success with conversion sciences?
I mean, I think it has been responsible for success and for every coin has both sides, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know, there's something to be said for having the perseverance to see something in the future and deciding that you're going to evangelize that, because it's really the style I've always taught as part
Yeah.
of convincing people. Um, but there's a lot of money to be made in stuff that is already here and needs to be done. Um, Having said that, since this generative AI stuff comes out, I've many a time said, man, if I was a younger man, I would jump into this stuff because it. I honestly think it's going to change things more than the internet did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, but I think the thing that I'm always trying to do is, rather than understanding other people's rules, is find some of my own that I can
Yep.
do my way. And at least at Convergent Sciences, it really has given us a long run of deciding what this is from a business standpoint and a lifestyle standpoint.
Yeah.
And I've just been very, very, very lucky to have, like one of the decisions we've made year after year. Well, some years we've tried differently, but stay small.
Yeah.
Here's a business where every time we try to grow it, we lose hold of the quality that we want to provide.
Yeah.
And the lifestyle of staying small means you don't have to work those 8-hour days
Yep.
trying to hire the next batch, then find the next batch of customers to employ them, and trying to make all of that work. So I feel very lucky about that.
Yeah, and I'm really envious of that in a lot of ways because I think you've hit on something in terms of, sort of that work-life balance that, is so talked about, but very few actually encounter it. And having conversations with, Joel and learning more about what you guys have really built in terms of the model and how the approach is. I love the fact that you're at a point now where you can say yes to the clients you want to work with and no to the ones you don't. And
Mhm.
you're at a point where you've built a business where you're damn good at what you do and your clients know it and have no problem paying for it. But you're able to enjoy life in addition to, I mean, the problem that you and I both seen, I think, in the entrepreneurial arena is that people have lost entire lives, families, go through divorces, have all these challenges, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, whatever, because they are so committed to just that one thing of being successful, they don't figure out how to figure out the other things. And I've
Mhm.
been super super envious of the fact that you've been able to do that, and very very impressed because I know you back in the day when you were working all the time, and we were, I mean, I think, honestly, our generation really, sort of should be um, credited with the hustle culture because that's really very much what we were doing in the late, 90s in the early 2000s. I mean, that's all we knew. And somehow, some way, I think you and I both have figured out that, like, there's a little bit more to the business, more to life than just the business. And if you can find the balance and strike that balance, then you got to hold on to it. And it makes life more enjoyable.
I mean, it certainly has for me. But going back to the data I collected myself, I don't really have that type A personality. There are
Yeah.
personalities that will, flourish in putting more and more stuff on their plate. Um, I sometimes that in itself can be an addiction, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think uh, you know the advice around that is, when you're launching something, be expensive, have fewer clients. They're a little bit harder to get. You have to get better at building value, which is a
Yeah.
really important skill for an entrepreneur.
Yep.
And then charge a lot,
Yeah.
and fewer clients will allow you to pay your bills and give you the runway that you need. So,
Yeah. Well, so let's talk a little bit about what you've built. What the hell is a conversion scientist and what's the deal with the lab coat?
yeah, just so everybody's clear, although in the last past couple of years, I haven't had to explain this word as much as I did the preceding 12
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
We're trying to convert visitors to your website into prospects, and we're trying to convert prospects into customers, essentially. So that's a conversion.
Yeah.
And there is all of this amazing data. Every one of you that has, first of all, when you put up a website, it's your primary goal. It's like, I'm going to talk about my company. They're going to be so impressed by the way I talk about my company that they're going to call me up or fill out a form and buy my thing.
Yeah.
So conversion is the purpose that most business websites, with few exceptions, are after.
Yeah.
And all of our websites have these analytics underneath. There are these really inexpensive tools that will show us how they're interacting with pages. And so all this data is there. And well, let's look at it another way. Let's say you have some important decisions to make. How much do we price this? Should we come out with this new product line? Should we add, which of these features should we invest in for the product? Should we add a new level of service? Should we take this to a SaaS? All of those questions, if you could find a group of people who would be qualified to give you an opinion on that, where would you find them?
Mm,
Focus group? Go out to the mall with a clipboard? No, they're all coming to your website
yeah,
every day. I mean, if
yeah,
you've got an established company, you've already got this focus group, and all you have to do is watch, see how they're interacting with it. We add a level of analysis that allows us to answer questions very quickly and adds a little bit more statistical significance to the decisions. But I mean, you can walk around your website like you're walking around a store, a brick and mortar store, and seeing what customers are doing through this data. So our goal is to light that stuff up, turn it into ideas, and if an idea doesn't have, there's not enough evidence that we should just implement this idea, we design experiments to see if it's a good idea. A/B testing, user testing, and things like that. So that's what we're doing, is applying behavioral science to the web, and we're all already wired for this. Every time that
sure.
you
Yeah,
pick a movie based on your Rotten Tomatoes, looking up the Rotten Tomatoes score,
yeah,
you're using
right.
other people's behaviors to make decisions in your life. When we're evaluating our Facebook posts based on how many comments, likes, and shares, we're using our wetware. Every time when we pick a product based on the star rating, and we know to look at the number of reviews that's driving that, we're using sample size and to understand whether it's risky to buy this product. So we're already doing it. We just take it to another level and systematize it.
So, with your industry being, focused on helping a company understand the importance of converting, right? And have social networks in these different platforms that have come in that allow people to extend their reach beyond their website. Has that been helpful or harmful to what you guys do?
Well, I mean, we look at it as another channel of traffic. So you have, you
Just another
know,
line in the water, right?
yeah, another line in the water. I think we see it more like flavors of ice cream.
Okay.
So we know that organic search traffic is intent driven. Somebody searched for something that you've decided is an indicator that they're interested in your product or your service, and they come to the website, and you present something to them that makes them feel good about buying.
Yep.
Social media is interrupt driven ads, so people are scrolling through their news feed, looking at friends and relatives and events and short videos now these days. But they get interrupted by something. And so
Yeah.
it's a different flavor of traffic.
Yep.
You generally have to work harder for somebody who's not actively looking for your product, but might be interested in it.
Yeah.
So there's a whole set of strategies around each of these categories that a playbook that we use in each of them. And we test to see, how many people coming through organic search are really interested in your product or just interested in that great article that you wrote. Um, Paid search advertising is getting more and more expensive. So how do we crank down that acquisition cost that's, making it hard for you to buy more paid search traffic, because it's delicious traffic. That's the double ripple fudge with the caramel swirl in it, because it's just really easier to convert.
Yeah. And I love how you describe those. I think that's a great way for people to understand and consume a little bit about what your firm is about. So when you have this reputation of wearing this lab coat, which you put on right before we hit record, tell me about that and how you've utilized that as a conversation starter, an opportunity to get people to make inquiries about what you do and how you do it, and how you become known for it, for, speaking from the stage in the lab coat.
Yeah, well, so I think that having something that people can hook values on or impressions on is really important. I mean, as you said, I've spoken everywhere. I'll insinuate myself into almost any audience I can that I can teach about this process that we do and the industry. Um, and they inevitably forget what I tell them on stage, but they always remember the lab coat. I mean, I don't go anywhere that people aren't like, "Hey, where's the lab coat?"
Yeah.
So consistency, picking something. The other thing is that uh, you can develop a bit around it. So my bit is that I wear it because science tells me to. The study of enclosed cognition studies how the clothes you wear affect you and the people around you.
Yeah.
And they did a test, when they put a lab coat on a group of people, they'll score 70% higher on a cognitive test than a group of people, similar group of people wearing street clothes.
Wow.
So when I'm wearing this, I think I'm smarter than I really am. And then, of course, the lab coat is a uniform. People are more likely to believe what you say, to follow your directions, right up to shocking a stranger in one famous test. So not only do I think I'm smarter than I am, but you think I'm smarter than I am. And this is exactly what we're trying to do with conversion optimization, a completely unfair advantage over our competitors because we're studying this stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, so and then if I'm going to walk out on stage in a lab coat and everyone's going to go like, I got to bring it. I got to be good.
Yeah.
So it ups my game so that people are remembering good things associated with this shtick.
Well, I have to tell you, I mean, I remember you speaking in the early days and I thought you were fantastic, but I've watched some of your videos from the different conferences that you've gone to, and you're a phenomenal presenter.
You think
You have a
so? Thank you.
command of your information, without question. That's an important aspect to have for any speaker, right? But at the end of the day, you command the audience in such a way that keeps them engaged and interested in a topic that maybe doesn't apply to a lot of people, and yet you have people that aren't in that decision making position to be a potential prospect or customer that are really genuinely interested in what you have to say and why you have to say it. And I don't remember which one it was, but I remember it's like after interview and somebody said, I will never look at data quite the same way. And that's a definite attribute to you, because you have a great way to command that kind of presence and do it in such a way that I think, not only makes you memorable beyond the coat, but makes you someone that people want to get to know, because you have a genuine interest in this stuff. You want to help people. And I know for a fact, just having interacted with you over the years, I mean, you're like, hey, what's going on, what are you working on, what can I do to help? And you've always been, as far as I'm concerned, a really designated rippler, right? You've always been out there. Hey, whether you're paying me or not, I'm willing to contribute and add value in some capacity. And for my audience, that's not an invitation to reach out to Brian and say I'm looking for free advice. Go find him speaking, because the stuff that he has, or go find some of these videos from these past performances, you'll learn a lot. But I think it's just a real credit to you in terms of the kind of person you are and kind of entrepreneur you are.
Wow, we definitely got to hang out more if this is what it's like. Thank you for the compliments.
Oh, you're
Speaking
welcome.
is kind of a lonely profession. Like you for those moments you're in front of hundreds or thousands of people, and then
Nothing.
you're by yourself again.
Then you're
And
off.
so there's not a lot of feedback other than who's nodding in the audience while you're
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. I always do. I not I
Yeah,
love
I mean,
compliments.
you are great at it. I mean, you really, really are, and I don't know how many times you've been told that, but I mean, you definitely. And I don't think you necessarily need the ego boost. And I'm not trying to, blow smoke up your skirt either. I really have been thoroughly impressed with what you do and how you do it, and picked up a few things, to make myself a better presenter along the way in terms of how you do it. And I think that's just a real credit. It's also a really good reason why the company's been successful, because you are a great front man for what you do. And I mean, you touched on it previously about finding that sort of that dance partner, if you will. Having someone like Joel that kind of is behind the scenes and kind of operates at the level he does allows you to have the flexibility to do what you do, which is to be the evangelist for your business and the approach that you guys take. Talk to me about that a little bit, and why that's such an essential element for entrepreneurs to really consider, because especially a solopreneur, they're not often thinking about, hey, I got to bring somebody back in that sort of is my yang to my yang, right?
I mean, so the obvious answer is somebody that has different proclivities. So I'm a prevent when it comes to process and stuff, and when you have employees and you have to manage this. What is this stuff? Oh, this money that's coming in and out. I'm kind of the we have checks in the checkbook, so everything must be fine. Um, Joel has anxiety around those things that I don't have, so
Yeah.
it's watched. He interacts with the employees most of the time. Um, So I just it becomes a giant blind spot for you, and it also becomes a giant weight when you're trying to fake your way into those things. And you can do it
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur. I'm able to fake it for 30, 60, 90 days. But like
But it's not
the
your core strength. That's not what you want to be doing, right?
It's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't make me happy, and it keeps me from doing everything, including the things that I enjoy and are good at. I mean, but it's no coincidence also that we really started making good money as soon as he and I joined forces. So
Yeah.
um, it it's like rocket fuel. It's a terrible analogy. I think it is. First of all, I got very lucky, and there's lots of partnerships that don't work out. Um, but I would always have my antenna up for people that could partner, even if they're an important employee partner,
Yeah.
that complement you. If you can hire it, if you can hire assistants and fill that gap, do it.
Yeah.
Um, it's a little bit harder to go the other way, I think, where if you're um, one of those methodical rule creating, rule following, the keeping the lights on and
Yep.
making sure that the water comes out of the pipe when it opens, to find the more visionary long term person that is going to be comfortable being adaptable and say like, oh, we haven't figured this out, but let's go forward and see what it's like. I can't reference the book that talks about that, but
Probably the E-Myth revisited, maybe one of
the E-Myth,
those.
actually, the E-Myth
Yeah.
is probably a good starting point for that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Yeah.
I love it. Well, I mean, you guys are doing something right. I think it's fantastic. You know, one of the things I'd like to, sort of ask you is what has been the most surprising thing? I mean, you've been doing this now for a while, right? So you tried several things. Your journey kind of, took some twists and turns, but then you really sort of settled in on like, hey, I like the data, I like the analysis, I like being able to look at these things, and I like to be able to do it in a consultative capacity.
Hmm.
And so, how many years has conversion sciences been around? And what's the most surprising thing about what you've learned up to this point?
Well, so we started in 2007, so that's like what,
Wow,
6 years,
that's awesome.
something like that. I have spreadsheets, so I don't do math in my head very well.
The data tells me that it's a little more than that, but I mean, you're kicking ass since 2007. So
Yeah. Well, the thing that you can't get away from when you're doing these statistical A/B tests of fantastic ideas, clearly better pages up against the old page, and um, driving traffic to both of them at the same time, and then seeing which one generates the most revenue, you pretty quickly get humbled by how many of your great ideas, obviously better, objectively better pages, are just shrugged off by the visitors.
yeah,
Um, so being able to always go back to this child's mind where it's like, I don't know anything. I mean, I've been doing this for, uh, you know, how long has it been?
it's,
14 years,
yeah,
15 years. And I still don't, I can't look at your website and tell you what's wrong with it. I have some ideas, but I do know how to go and find out which of these ideas is good. So I think that, and, that's probably the biggest thing,
I love it.
honestly. Just
Yeah,
when you begin to realize that you're not all that, no matter how well you know your customers, it can be painful for a little while, but it's very freeing to like allows you to try some crazy stuff. 'Cause-
yeah, and the world is changing so rapidly, even in the last 5 to 10 years, right? Especially since you started your company, and we basically both. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, but just watching, if I looked at like kind of the last 5 years alone, just everything that is occurring. I mean, you touched on it. AI is, I think, going to change the game for a lot of people. It's going to do a
Mhm.
lot of. It's going to have some far-reaching impacts to businesses, and you can't sit on your hands. You have to figure out how to partner with companies like yours that are looking at these things and understanding the consequences and the impacts. But you also have to get into the research. You have to, do your own homework and figure out how to continue to provide the best possible value, whatever your business might be as an entrepreneur. And I think I think that's one of the things that you inspire me to want to do is continue to look through the data, continue to be better at whatever it is that I'm doing, and be adaptable, right?
Mhm.
I suspect, in the course of since 2007, you've seen just in how websites are created, right? And that whole process is changed so dramatically.
And it has changed remarkably so little. The fact that most of our metaphors in design are still around brochures, like there's pages and uh, top of the
That's
fold.
an interesting comment. I would not have expected that from you. I would have thought it would have been dramatic, but you're not thinking so much, though, huh?
No, I mean most websites are, let's redesign our website. We want to refresh.
Yeah,
And then you hand it off to a small team of people and they might do a
yeah.
little research and then they make 10,000 decisions about what your audience wants and then you launch it all at once and you're like, "Yay."
And then it
And that's
just
usually
sits
when
there.
we get a call because it's like, "We launched this beautiful new website and conversions went down." So it's
Wait,
that's another
you
windmill that I've
you might be looking at my
always looked
software
at.
company, right? I just make it. You might just be talking about me. I don't know.
You know, there's the data is kind of an insurance policy. Like
Yeah,
my favorite payoff is that you can put some crazy ideas back in the mix because we're not going to just change the website and see what happens. Let's design a test where we can see if the audience really likes this.
yeah,
And I love crazy.
yeah. I love that. Well, so I could talk to you all day, and clearly we are well over due for a beer, and we're going to need to remedy that. But I know you've got a busy schedule. I mean, you're an in-demand guy. You're probably flying off on some private jet, this afternoon. I don't know, but
Private.
it wouldn't be a great interview if I didn't hit you up with some Ripple connection questions if you're game.
I'm game.
All right, so. What is the one thing that you love to do more than anything when you're not working?
The thing I love to do more than anything when I'm not working, honestly, is having dinner with people that don't agree with me. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
I like that. Do you do that
I like,
often?
I like getting smart people together. Yeah, who have different points of view and talking it out
Ah,
around the table. So
that
yeah,
that's great. Well, I mean, uh, that seems like a really fun way to expand your horizons.
yeah, you're gonna have to come for a fire night.
Yeah,
I bring people over. We light a fire. We have a few libations, and then we see where the conversation's gonna go because
I
they're
love it.
pretty good. So you should come for one of those.
Well,
Yes.
I would be honored. I would definitely be honored. I know you are a big advocate for being on your bike. We can see it over your shoulder.
Mhm.
So, what is it about the bike that you love so much?
It's really sheer terror. I book a 7-day tour through the mountains every summer.
Oh, wow, I
So
didn't know that.
about this time, I'm starting to look at myself and go because I'm not a biker. Starting to look at myself, going like, "Oh Jesus, I've got to really get in shape for this sort of thing." And I'm a big fan on the personal side of doing something that terrifies you every year. I've
Yeah,
done 10-day silent meditation retreats. That was terrifying for a guy like me.
yeah.
Um, I went to Burning Man last year.
No kidding.
Yeah, the mud burn when it rained in the desert, which
Oh my.
it does. So I'm a fan of putting things out in front of you that are gonna make the current you go like, oh, I better be a different person in the next few months to get ready for this.
I like that. If you weren't doing what you're doing now professionally, what would you like to be doing?
I would be wanting to break something else. I mean, I've been trying to break the way we design websites for a while, and yeah, I have some other ideas rattling around on a more philosophical side of things that we definitely should talk about over some beers.
Yeah, we definitely should. I'd love that. Who do you consider your hero?
My hero? Oh boy, that's a good question. I usually take credit for all of my own thoughts, so um, right now you're my hero.
Uh, That's just because I'm in front of you. I mean, that's, you know. Well, let me rephrase that. Who do you hold in high esteem or credit for helping you become who you are today? Because I had nothing to do with that, so you can't actually say it's me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, uh, on a professional side, I think Roy Williams, who built this strange business school out in the hill country of Texas, and
Yeah,
um, offered courses that always brought me in, and basically taught me how to do on purpose what artists and writers and composers do on accident. And of course, that's where I found my future calling at one of their classes. So definitely, I've always respected his ability to just turn everything upside down. And if you're in Austin, you should really go out and visit the campus.
yeah,
Um, and then, I mean, just the people that supported this. I mentioned my ex-wife. I don't know why I'm talking about her so much today. Um, my kids, who are fantastic. Um, and I'm very fortunate to have a group of men around me that are in the question, as I say,
yeah.
about life and about business, and it makes every day and every dinner very, very interesting.
That's awesome. What did the 7-year-old Brian want to be when he grew up?
The 7-year-old Brian wanted to be a filmmaker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in my play and setting up uh, sets in the sand and reliving Star Wars. I
Yeah.
did make my own Star Wars movie with all of the Battlestar Galactica models that I'd built,
Oh, that's awesome.
uh, robots, and yeah, that was kind of the path I was on. I don't think I had that conscious thought, but that's the way I played.
Yeah. I love that. You and I have that in common for sure. That's pretty interesting. We'll have to talk about that offline sometime. Um, where do you see the next 5 years going for Brian Massey?
Um, I mean, I think conversion sciences is just humming along. Um, I'm going to be 64 in 5 years. And that's about the perfect age to start something new. So I've got my eyes on some other things to break in the world.
Did you say
Our focus.
64? I think you meant like 44, right?
uh, Oh, I'm sorry. Did I misspeak?
You said math wasn't your strength, so I was like,
We're in
dang, man.
the
That's I mean, I knew we were around the same age, but I didn't know you were older. I always thought I was older than you.
no
You're
kidding.
much wiser. Don't get me wrong. I just wow.
Well, that's the whole point. Like at our age, we have this new wisdom, hard fought. We've gotten
Yeah,
through our midlife crisis, and we look at the world very differently
yeah,
in this phase of life. David Brooks calls it the second mountain. I like
yeah.
that.
I do too.
And so I think it's a combination of exercising our wisdom and experience, but also helping the young men that haven't quite started. They're still climbing their first mountain as they
Yeah,
should be, helping them along. So
yeah. I love that. I mean, I love your attitude and your approach to life. I always have, but especially now, right? And we're at a point where the opportunity for us to give back and make a difference, I think, is right there. And I think the opportunity to, take that
yeah,
advantage to say, hey, look, we've been down these paths, we've made these mistakes, we've, been challenged, personally or professionally, and let us help guide you. Like you said, everybody's got their own mountain to climb, but if we can make that journey just a little bit easier for somebody, then we're doing something significant.
yeah. We've never been better men than we are right now. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So last three questions I've got for you. Um, what do you want to be known for?
ooh, what do I want to be known for? I like being known for breaking the rules. I think ultimately, I don't really need to have built anything very big. There's a thought experiment I do that is if an angel came down and you said, "Please tell me my purpose," and the angel says, "You're going to change one person's life, but you're not going to know." Uh, would that be a satisfying life? Uh, it's a thought experiment. What it is kind of lets go of a lot of what we're told when we're building our
Yeah.
first businesses, is that like growth. If you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
And if you don't have these competencies as an entrepreneur, then well,
You're going
your
to
life is going to
fail.
be
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
Um,
Hustle, hustle, hustle. Yeah.
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 So I'm interested in discovering what's next and kind of being open to it.
I love that. What does the ripple effect mean to you when you hear that term?
I mean, the ripple effect it is a very rich symbol. The water is usually a symbol of our subconscious, um, and below the subconscious, we all have these common creatures swimming around. There's monsters. There's bounty of food below there. It's beautiful. It's deep and dark, and the ripple effect is creating ripples on the surface so that people can be impacted by you, floating on a kind of a common sea or a common pond of what makes us similar, even if we might look, act, have been brought up differently, have been brought up in different countries, different cultures. Um, it is the disturbance that starts to help us understand how we're more alike than different.
I love that. That is probably one of the most philosophical answers I've gotten to that question. So I appreciate that. I love that. I love that a lot. What ripple can I be looking to create for you?
What ripple? I mean, invite me onto your podcast and let's have an interesting conversation. Oh, wait, what happened? Wow, you are good.
Next.
Damn.
Yeah. No,
I think the next
seriously.
ripple is
Yeah.
let's have you drop your interesting way of looking at the world into a group of other people and
Yeah.
see what happens.
I, I'm down anytime. I would love to participate for sure. Well, Brian, before I let you go, what's the best way for people to learn about your work? How do you want them to follow you or seek you out?
Go to conversionsciences.com. We write about everything we're doing, everything we're learning. So that is a good way to dip your toe in. Maybe start fixing some obvious things on your site. And we're also active on LinkedIn if you want to dive in and have some conversations. Um, and you have an opportunity to join my email list, which is not a newsletter. It's really me griping about one thing or the other. So you'll get a firm taste of my contrariness there, and it might appeal to you.
It will definitely appeal to you. So I highly recommend people seek you out and sign up for that because you will enjoy it immensely. So, Brian Massey, I am so grateful that we have stayed connected all these years, even though we don't see each other that often. I think of you all the time, and I'm
Hmm.
proud to call you a friend. And like I said earlier, not to butter you up any further, but I mean, I really do consider you one of the true people that I think of when I think of Ripplers, someone that's out there that really has an inquisitive mind that's really trying to learn about how they can be a service to another person. You were that for me 16, 15, 16 years ago. And I
Hmm.
truly appreciated it then. I appreciate it now. And I just think we need to find some additional opportunities to hang out because I miss those times a lot. But I am so grateful that you agreed to be on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for making me feel so good.
So that's my purpose. That's what I'm trying to do. That's all, but no, in all honesty, every bit of it's true. I mean, you really did have an instrumental impact on my life at a time where when the book was coming out and, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with it, where I was going to take it and where I was going in my other entrepreneurial interests. I mean, you just played a really pivotal role at that time for me. And like I said, I give you full credit for the fact that I'm on a podcast, doing a podcast now for 9 seasons, all because you introduced me to the medium and said, "Hey, this might be something you want to check out. This is a way to further the ripple and get that message out." And so I appreciate that, and just appreciate you. So
I
uh,
admire your stick to itiveness. My podcast didn't last more than a couple of years, so I know what it takes, and I can tell that you love it. So
I
thank
do,
you.
yeah. I may not be as good a interviewer as you, but I'm working at it. So I'm trying.
You got that great radio voice.
Oh, I don't know about that. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. I would love to have your voice. I said that actually in your introduction. I mean, you have just that perfect DJ voice. And so I remember what you're hearing is a ripple. Remember that video or the recording that you did from the 8-minute ripple when we did it to Doubletree? It was like it was awesome. People need to go find that. I need to put a link in the show notes somehow to what you recorded that time. We had such a blast with that, but you really did turn me on to this medium, and I appreciate it. So, guys,
Okay,
we'll be back.
drive somewhere. Yeah.
What? Yeah, it's got to be somewhere. We got to find it for sure. But guys, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Definitely go check out Conversion Sciences and find the LinkedIn page, find their website, follow Brian, get on his newsletter, and you will. You can thank me later because I promise you it will be well worth it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Brian, I want to thank you again for being a part of this. And as always, ripple on.
Ripple on.